Karen stole my RV for the weekend. It was an FBI command unit. It vanished sometime between 6:17 and 6:34 a.m. I know because I have the timestamps from both my driveway camera and the one I installed behind the rose bushes hidden. Because, well, I don't exactly have the luxury of assuming good intentions from my neighbors anymore. Especially not Karen Dillard, the woman who thinks a printed lanyard and a clipboard gives her divine authority over our entire block. My name's Micah Dean. I live in a quiet-ish cul-de-sac in Westbridge, Colorado. I'm 41, divorced, no kids. My neighbors think I'm a consultant for a logistics firm, and that ugly gray and black RV in my driveway, it's not an RV, it's a rolling FBI command unit, fully active, fully classified, and yes, I parked it at home that week because it was bait, the cover story. When I moved into Willow Bend 4 months ago, I knew I'd have to keep a low profile. Nobody suspects the divorced guy with the power washer and a two-car garage is running surveillance for Homeland operations. It's part of the job. Deep field integration, embedded monitoring. There'd been a tip about a fraud ring operating through fake HOAs, mostly in upper-middle-class neighborhoods, targeting military families and senior citizens. Extortion through fake citations. Threats disguised as neighborly concern. My mission, observe and identify the ringleaders. But I didn't expect Karen to be this blatant, this early. Who is Karen? Karen Dillard is the self-declared president of the Willow Bend Community Covenant Group. No one remembers voting her in. No one can find an actual charter, but she carries a badge on a chain around her neck that reads Neighborhood Code Compliance Division, not affiliated with county, state, or federal government. In small letters, of course, she drives a white Kia Sorento with magnetic HOA patrol decals on the side, has a ring binder of approved landscaping pallets, and she once threatened to call child services on a neighbor because their toddler's sidewalk chalk violated front yard visual integrity. So yeah, Karen was already on my radar, but Friday morning she went too far. The disappearance. I woke up to an empty driveway. At first, I thought it had been moved for maintenance. Then I saw the marks, the deep drag lines in the gravel, the snapped reflector near the curb, the bent garden gate where someone had backed in hard, and the note taped to my front door. This recreational vehicle has been towed for non-compliance with HOA Section 3.4.2. No vehicles exceeding 25 FT may remain stationary more than 72 hours. Willow Bend Covenant Patrol Enforcement. I stood there stunned. It had only been parked there for 11 hours. And more importantly, it wasn't hers to touch. Not just because I own it, but because that RV under the bland paint, beneath the fake camping decals, was housing federal surveillance tech, encrypted communications, and active case files. The mistake of a lifetime. I bolted inside, pulled up my rear security feed. There she was. 6:28 a.m. Karen, ball cap, clipboard, standing at the edge of my lawn while a private tow truck driver hesitated. She pointed at the RV like she was conducting a military op, waved a thick packet of papers. The driver shrugged and hooked the tow line. And just like that, $1.4 million of unmarked federal equipment vanished down the street. I dialed the backup team. 3 rings. A calm voice answered. "Command, it's Dean," I said, already grabbing my go bag. "Unit's been stolen. Suspect is a civilian named Karen Dillard. No idea what she thinks she's done. Was the shell breached? No, but I give it 6 hours max before she opens the door." Understood. Asset recovery in motion. And then they hung up. That RV was rigged with a failsafe. If someone tampered with the back panel, they'd trigger a lockdown and a distress ping to HQ. But if they tried to force the override, the data inside would fry. Karen didn't just steal a trailer. She stole active intelligence tied to 2 federal fraud cases and an undercover network. And she had no idea what she'd done. But she was about to find Karen had no idea she was driving a hornet's nest into the mountains. By 9:20 a.m., she'd already posted pictures on the Willow Bend HOA Facebook page. One selfie showed her posing in front of my stolen RV with the caption, "Compliance retreat begins out of town for a few days with the girls. If you need code clarification, text me phone on silent. She even added 3 heart emojis and tagged the location, Elkview Ridge Park. That post cost her everything. By the time I got to the field office, Agent Park and the tactical lead were already prepping a recovery team. I pulled up my laptop, scrubbed through security footage, and uploaded the coordinates from the Facebook check-in. Agent Park looked at me with a raised eyebrow. She posted a geotag. Karen is the kind of person who thinks violating federal law is fine, as long as the font on her documents is justified. He chuckled dryly. What does she think that RV is? Probably a community conference trailer. There's a dry erase board on one wall. She might take it as a sign. We weren't just worried about theft. The trailer was rigged with deep access live encryption, live case monitoring, and passive feeds from 2 ongoing HOA fraud rings across the state. If she opened one wrong compartment, the hard drive would auto-wipe, but worse if she tripped the emergency failsafe. The RV would lock, flash its real ID, and broadcast its distress code over federal and military channels. That wasn't just embarrassing. It was explosive. At 11:13 a.m., I intercepted a live video in the Willow Bend residence with Values Group. Karen stood in the RV's lounge area, filming herself with 3 other women sipping sparkling cider from mason jars. The windows were open, the curtains drawn back to show the mountain view. "So this is our new HQ," she chirped. "Took some wrangling, but we got it out of that guy's driveway. He refused to move it. Typical non-compliant." She panned the camera. "It's a little industrial looking inside, but I'm thinking we can repurpose it for mobile community inspection tours. Might even turn the back into a document storage vault." Lots of locked cabinets, I nearly choked. Behind her, clear as day, was the encrypted server bay. One drawer was already halfway open. We launched under the cover of a routine ranger check. 3 black Suburbans, 2 agents on foot, a Forest Service ranger vehicle for cover. Karen's group had parked the RV in a restricted overlook, not surprising, considering she believed rules were optional when she was in charge. They had lawn chairs out. 2 had even hung a plastic banner from the rear. "Willow Bend Retreat for Compliance Ambassadors," Agent Park muttered. "They branded a federal surveillance rig. They're about to brand it as evidence," I replied. I approached first alone, in civilian clothes. Karen didn't recognize me at first. "Excuse me," I called out. "Is that your vehicle?" She turned, adjusting her sunglasses. "Actually, it belongs to the community. We had it removed from a non-compliant lot." "That's my RV," I said, dead calm. "You had it towed without cause. That's felony theft." Her mouth opened, closed, then reset to default smug. "Sir, this is private HOA jurisdiction. I'm the acting authority here. You abandoned a recreational structure in direct violation of—" I held up my ID. "FBI." The smug dissolved before she could speak. Black Suburbans peeled around the curve behind me. Doors opened. Agents stepped out. Karen backed up into the bumper of the RV. "Wait, I was going to return it." "I was going to, ma'am," Agent Park said, stepping forward. "Step away from the federal vehicle." One of the other women started crying. Another ran. Karen didn't move, but I did. I walked to the side of the RV and opened the panel she'd been fiddling with. The moment it clicked open, red lights flashed from the interior emergency lockdown. Too late. The fail-safe had activated. By that evening, every local station in the Denver metro was running the footage. "Woman steals FBI surveillance vehicle for HOA compliance retreat. Fake HOA president under federal investigation." After weekend theft, neighbors flooded the HOA email account with demands for her removal. She didn't just break the law, she'd embarrassed everyone who ever nodded politely at one of her fake citations. Karen was placed under federal custody within the hour. Her house was sealed for evidence. The tow company was subpoenaed, and every compliance form she'd ever handed out was being cataloged. But this wasn't just about a stolen RV anymore. We just opened the lid on a network. And Karen, she was the thread that would unravel the whole thing. You'd think stealing an FBI vehicle would be the peak of Karen's madness. You'd be wrong, because once we had her in custody, the paper trail unraveled like a spool soaked in gasoline fast. Flammable, and full of rot. What we uncovered wasn't just a one-time offense. It was a multi-county network of fake HOAs, fraudulent fines, mail fraud schemes, and ghost boards controlled entirely by one woman and her tiny army of clipboard commandos. And I had front row seats. The next 48 hours were chaos. Local news outlets picked it up first, then regional. CNN even ran a scroll, Colorado woman accused of stealing FBI surveillance vehicle in HOA dispute. Karen was being held without bail, and back in Willow Bend, everything changed. Her little HOA empire imploded. Half the neighborhood started removing the ridiculous visual harmony flags she'd issued. One guy took a flamethrower to the approved lawn color palette signs. Someone spray-painted "Not an HOA" across the clubhouse in neon orange. The HOA bank account frozen. The so-called compliance dues she'd collected totaling over $128,000 were flagged as potential civil fraud. But the real bombshell came from a series of emails we pulled from her personal laptop. Karen hadn't just invented an HOA, she'd franchised it. Using fake legal templates and a professional-looking website, she sold HOA starter kits online under the name Civic Harmony Initiative. Each kit included a forged charter template, sample fine letters, customizable badge designs, step-by-step enforcement guidelines, legal jargon sprinkled just enough to sound legitimate. She sold over 40 kits across 6 states, most to neighborhoods with new developments, mostly where younger or immigrant families moved in communities unlikely to question authority or unsure of HOA laws. And she didn't just teach them how to create fake HOAs. She offered consulting calls in which she encouraged organizers to make yourself indispensable. Speak with finality. Most people fold when the paper looks official. That quote was in an email, under her signature. In bold, Agent Park and I briefed the full team back at the Denver field office. We'd gone from a localized fraud investigation to what now qualified as a RICO-level interstate racketeering case. Karen's clients were forging citations, accessing mailboxes, federal offense, hiring private security companies to enforce fake HOA rules, and using the fines to build personal savings accounts and buy property in other cities. One so-called HOA president in Utah had even tried to evict a tenant for putting up Halloween decorations. The tenant was a retired judge. He called the state AG, and suddenly, everyone was looking for where it started. That trail led right back to Karen Dillard, back in Willow Bend. The fallout wasn't just legal, it was personal. Some people defended her. I mean, she had good intentions, said one elderly neighbor. She kept the yards clean, but others furious. She humiliated my son for leaving a scooter in the driveway, said another. Made him cry in front of his friends. She's a tyrant, and me, I kept my head down. I wasn't supposed to be visible. But as the story grew, I had no choice. People started asking questions about who I really was. I'd spent months hiding as a quiet logistics guy. Now they knew I was FBI. Some neighbors thanked me. Others avoided me entirely. Because nothing shatters the illusion of safety like realizing the monster lived next door, and you waved at her every morning. 3 days later, she issued a statement through her lawyer. It read, "I acted to preserve community standards. When civic infrastructure fails, private organization becomes necessary. I am not a criminal, I am a steward." A steward. The internet tore her apart. Late-night shows had a field day. Stephen Colbert even joked. She didn't just steal an RV, she tried to turn it into the Death Star of suburbia. I met with several of the falsely fined families. Some had paid hundreds in made-up violations. A single mom named Elena had received over $200 in fees just for parking her work van out front. "I didn't even know it was fake," she said, crying. "I thought I'd lose the house." That's what this was really about. Power through fear, control through confusion. Karen had weaponized trust, and now it was up to us to rebuild it block by block. You'd think getting arrested by the FBI, having your entire fraud ring exposed, and being mocked on national television would be enough to humble someone. But Karen Dillard, she wasn't done. From her jail cell, she launched one final play, a coordinated legal ambush that nearly blew everything wide open again. because while we were busy cleaning up her mess, she was preparing a lawsuit against me. It dropped on a Monday morning like a virus in the town inbox. Dillard v. Dean, FBI, and unknown agents. She claimed unlawful entrapment, character assassination, property damage from the RV's security lockdown, and emotional trauma suffered during her arrest, which she insisted was excessively dramatic and disproportionate to the nature of the violation. Yes, the woman who stole an FBI surveillance vehicle, towed it under false pretenses, and live-streamed inside it with a mason jar in hand, claimed she was the victim. Her lawyer went further, calling me a rogue operative who baited a civilian into a federal trap. It would have been laughable if not for the noise it created. The lawsuit gave her a microphone again, podcasts, fringe websites, even a few civil liberty influencers started asking if maybe, just maybe, the government had gone too far. I got doxxed. Pictures of my house circulated. Someone slashed my tires. A brick with the words HOA Forever was thrown through my front window. People who'd once thanked me for exposing Karen now whispered about hidden agendas and deep state setups. That's what she'd always been good at, controlling the narrative. She couldn't build truth, so she built confusion. We held a press conference at the county courthouse. This time, I didn't speak as an agent. I spoke as Micah Dean, neighbor, witness, victim. I showed evidence: the forged HOA charters, the invoices from fake compliance fines, the bank routing numbers tied to Karen's personal savings account, and most damning, a recorded phone call where Karen told one of her board members, "Don't worry, if they push back, cite them harder. Most people fold when they think it's legal." When the public heard her voice cold, calm, manipulative, the tide turned again. Because people can excuse mistakes, but not malice. Then we brought out the real stories. Elena, the single mom fined into near eviction. Mr. Patel, an elderly immigrant who was threatened with HOA repatriation paperwork that didn't even exist. A teenager whose dog had been reported and nearly taken by animal control, all because Karen said it was a visual deterrent to neighborhood charm. They shared everything: their shame, their silence, and their regret for not pushing back sooner. It wasn't just cathartic, it was healing. Agent Park and I worked closely with local officials to implement the Neighborhood Integrity Initiative, mandatory HOA registry with the State Attorney General's office, licensing for any group that issues fines or citations, a whistleblower protection program for residents reporting abuse, publicly elected neighborhood review boards. Karen's fake charter was now part of a university legal curriculum: how HOA law can be faked and how to stop it. After a 2-week media roller coaster, a federal judge dismissed Karen's lawsuit with prejudice, but not before delivering this statement. This court affirms that fraud cannot be shielded by confusion, nor can accountability be framed as conspiracy. Ms. Dillard weaponized trust. She will not weaponize the law. Karen's response: silence. Her legal team withdrew. She remained behind bars awaiting trial, and the house she once ruled like a castle listed for sale. The HOA was officially dissolved, but a real neighborhood council took its place. This time, voted in, transparent, accountable. Elena ran for chair. She won. We held a celebration barbecue on the same cul-de-sac Karen had once tried to patrol with a plastic badge and an attitude. No citations, no fines, just laughter, music. Plates passed hand to hand. Even Agent Park showed up without his jacket, just a ball cap and a beer. I finally felt like I wasn't undercover anymore. I was home. It was a cold morning in December when the sentence came down. Karen Dillard stood in federal court wearing a navy blue jumpsuit and that same smugness she'd worn like perfume since the day we met. Her hair was pulled back tight, her jaw clenched like a door refusing to open. The judge read the charges slowly, one after another: grand theft of a government vehicle, obstruction of federal operations, wire fraud, mail fraud, criminal impersonation, conspiracy to commit civil racketeering. She stood unmoving. But when the judge said the words, "sentenced to 11 years in federal custody without the possibility of parole," I watched something flicker in her eyes. Not regret, not fear, but the dawning realization that no one was clapping for her anymore. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed the steps. Microphone, flashes, questions. I didn't answer any of them. Not that day, because justice, when it's real, doesn't need a spotlight. It just needs to stand. And Karen had finally fallen. 6 months after the sentencing, Willow Bend was a different place. Elena's new neighborhood council ran on transparency, inclusion, and feedback. Every meeting was streamed live. Fines, when absolutely necessary, were voted on by residents, not slapped on windshields in the dead of night. Gone were the clipboards, the fake security vests, the fear. Now, kids played without being reported. Dogs barked without fines. People talked, really talked, over hedges and fences. The power Karen once held had dissolved. And what grew in its place? Trust. I filed my last report on the case 1 month after Karen's sentencing. Operation Echo Vest closed and archived. We'd taken down not just a criminal, but the idea that someone can weaponize authority without earning it, and that silence is the same as consent. It wasn't easy, but it worked. Karen's operation had inspired a new set of state laws nicknamed the Dillard Statutes that require certification, regulation, and independent oversight for any HOA or neighborhood compliance organization. And her mugshot? It's been shown in over a dozen FBI seminars on fraud psychology. There's a photo I keep in my kitchen now. It's from the first neighborhood potluck after the council reform passed. Everyone's gathered in lawn chairs, kids running through sprinklers, old men arguing about ribs, women laughing over lemonade. In the middle, I'm sitting next to Elena, raising a toast with a paper cup. It's not flashy, not a headline, just real. And after everything, after the surveillance, the lies, the threats, and the silence, that photo is proof we took our power back. Karen thought she could own order. She thought control meant leadership. She thought fear would keep us still. But here's the thing about fear. It breaks. And truth, it echoes. It echoed in a courtroom. It echoed in a cul-de-sac. And now, maybe it'll echo wherever this story lands. Have you ever been bullied by fake authority, by someone who weaponized rules instead of serving the community? Do you believe HOAs and local powers should be regulated with the same scrutiny we apply to public officials? Where do you draw the line between leadership and control? Let's talk. Share your story. Because justice doesn't end in court, it begins in your own backyard.